So we obviously can't come to a agreement on exactly what happened, where they went, why we were never able to find them. But we didn't have the same resources that we have today. Although I've watched a whole video of it recently. They're trying to use forensics to connect people that are living now to possible descendants of these colonists. And if they're able to find that, then they'll be able to, prove that they, at the very minimum, survived, or some of them survived. But it really is still a mystery. And there are scientists that think they have a good idea. There are generally accepted theories that are out there. But ultimately, we don't know, which somebody said it yesterday, I forget who it was, that they just wish there was a right answer. I think it was Emil. You said, I just wish there was a right answer. It just bothers me that there's not. But that's the good part about this lesson, is because there's no right answer, you guys are going to be coming up with one and defending a theory that you have. And you can't be right or wrong because there is no right or wrong answer. So that should make you feel better, although sometimes that stresses people out more, but we'll get through it. So you guys have looked at these clues now. You're probably already, it's just human nature that you want to solve the problem or solve the mystery. So you probably already kind of have an idea of what you think might have actually happened to these colonists. And that's great, because that's what you're going to do. You guys are going to be coming up with your personal theory on what happened to them. The best part is I'm not just making you write an essay about it. So you can thank me for that, because Ms. Burgess tried to get, no, I'm just kidding. She didn't tell me to, but that is typically what happens when you're defending yourself or defending an argument of yours. So I have posted, I was supposed to have posted, it's not, is it a draft still? I'm not going to give it a due date yet, because I'm going to gauge how we're working through this through the rest of this week, well, tomorrow and Monday. But if you guys want to open this up and kind of take a look at it, pull up a couple of there we go. Always does this. There we go. Okay, so there's a lot of attachments to this. Don't look at that and think that that means you have a whole lot of work to do. You have a choice, a complete choice on how you are going to be presenting your theory to me. You're not presenting to the class. I'm not going to make you do that again. But it's basically, how are you going to communicate your theory to me? And you've got 3 choices in which to do that. You look at the choice board. It's going to give you what your options are. So has anybody ever done Flipgrid before? Give me a nod if you've used Flipgrid. I know Miss Wilson used it last year. Okay, so we're kind of split. Some people have, some people haven't. If you haven't used it, Flipgrid is basically just a screen recorder or a regular recorder where you can create a video over a certain topic or discussion, and then submit it to me as the teacher. So you can even like share your screen like how I do, or when I give my little videos, when I've got like myself in the side there, you can be presenting a slideshow if you want to. You could be putting up a picture. It doesn't matter. But it's a way for you to verbalize what this discussion is about, which is the theory that you're coming up with. So if you would rather just speak your theory to me, Flipgrid is going to be the best way to do that. Okay, so you can be on the camera. You don't have to be on the camera, but you can. The other option you have would be, well, we'll go to Flipgrid. If you click on the Flipgrid, it'll tell you kind of what we're looking at. You're going to see this continue to refer to a checklist. And I'm going to show you that, share with you that checklist here in just a minute. But basically, as long as you have all parts that we're looking for of this theory, and you've recorded it, it's a 5-minute limit on the video. but that would be how you're turning it in. You technically wouldn't have to write a single thing, although I do suggest writing at least something so that you have a guide to go off of. Usually when we just go off of a whim, it doesn't always come out exactly how we want to. All right, so that is your first way that you're going to be able to tell me your theory. Another way would be if you want to do it in Google Slides. Okay, the example that I'm using here is the example that some of my other classes are doing. You'll have a little bit more when it comes to what is expected in your slides, but this is an example of how you can kind of lay it out. If you choose to do the slides presentation, you don't have to like write in paragraphs. You can do it more in bullets. As long as all the relevant information is there, then you're good. Let's see. Okay. And then you've got to have just a couple images throughout there. Get a little creative. It has to have a theme. Doesn't have to be like all extra like my slideshows are, but it does need to like be something that you would be semi-proud of, not just white slides with Arial font. That's the most annoying thing when people turn things in that way. That's not real life. You would never give a real presentation that way. So if you don't want to do either of those, you can go completely traditional. And this is fine because maybe that's your strength. Maybe you absolutely feel like you're the greatest writer to ever exist and you want to do this. This is absolutely fine, but I didn't want to make you guys just always write to show me that you're understanding something, but I'm going to leave it as an option. So you can do this essay. You got to have all parts of the theory that I'm going to explain to you in that checklist. Do need to find like 2 visuals to put on your doc, but for the most part, this is just writing an essay. I will tell you that this one is going to be graded most critically because it doesn't take a lot of like creativity or extra thought to it. So you're going to have to write formally and, you know, have all parts of your theory that I'm going to share with you in just a moment, okay? So keep in mind that those are the 3 ways that you are going to be able to communicate this theory to me. Now, what are we looking for? That is where you're going to open up the attachment that says Advanced Roanoke Theory. So when you open up Advanced Roanoke Theory, it's a checklist in a Google Sheets. I know it's loading for you guys. It's a checklist in a Google Sheets, and it is basically going to be turning into my rubric. Whether I'm listening to you give me your theory, or if I'm going through your slides, or I'm reading your essay, I'm going to use this checklist to make sure that you've included all of these things in whatever way you do it, okay? So how I've created this is you can go through and you can check off things as you've gotten it done, or as you've included it. But this white space over here is where you can take your own notes. I think if you're doing the flip grid, this is a really good way to kind of organize yourself to make sure that you have all parts that are expected. And you can just kind of use this as your script. Okay, but that's is how this functions. I am not going to grade this. I'm not even going to look at it. You have your hand up. Amani, what's up?
Do we have to present this in front of the class?
No. When I say presentation, it's just like how you're going to present the information to me. So you have any of those 3 ways that I discussed is just how you're going to turn it in. Okay. All right. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to make your claim, which is going to be, and Ms. Burgess, you guys are doing your, talking research. It's kind of like your thesis. This is where you're going to present your theory and tell me what you're going to prove to me. Okay, when you're coming up with your theory, you need by the end of the paper, or however you're presenting it to me, I need to know what happened to the colonists, and if it wasn't that they just died, where did they go, how'd they get there, and why were we never able to find them? Okay, so that's kind of what you need to keep in mind. You're kind of answering those overarching questions. Now that varies depending on what your theory ends up being. So I don't like to say you have to have this and this and this, because if you say natives attacked them, you can't really continue to go like, where did they live? Why did we never find them? Well, they're buried in the ground somewhere and decomposed. That's easy. All right, so you're going to make your claim. Then you're going to list your first piece of evidence. You guys are allowed to use 1 evidence from the clues that you just evaluated. like directly from my website. I'm not going to make you go out and find your own sourcing for one of your clues or for one of your pieces of evidence. For the other two pieces of evidence, you are going to have to do a little bit of research on your own from a more reliable source. Now, you might say that, okay, I want to look more into the Dare stones, and you can still use the Dare stones as your evidence, but the source that you get it from and information you get it from can't just be the information on my slides. You're going to need to find a source, which there's plenty out there that talk about the Dare stones and a lot of those other things, okay? But at least one of your pieces of evidence is allowed to be straight from, you don't have to do any sourcing information. It can just be straight from my clue, and the source is just whatever the clue number is. So you got your first piece of evidence. You're telling me where that evidence came from. And then this is the most important part and holds the biggest part of your grade. You need to explain how that evidence supports your claim, proves that your theory is right and that this is what happened. I'll give you an example here in a second. Right? Then you're going to have a total of 3 pieces of just straight up evidence that support your theory. The second piece of evidence does need to be from a source that you find on your own, and you are going to make a works cited page. So you do need to make sure you know where you got this information from. So when you go to make the works cited page, like you've been practicing with Ms. Burgess for the past weeks, that you're able to do that, okay? So at least 2 of these pieces of evidence need to come from your own source. All right, so that's just done 2 times. Then the last part that's in the yellow, this is called your counterclaim. This is what your bell work was about, and I admittedly did not get a chance to look at them. But I've got a resource that you can use to understand how to use a counterclaim a little bit better. I'm also going to be making a video to post in there because there's no way you're going to get to this part today. But essentially, you're going to try to think of a clue that is typically, supports not your theory and spin it in a way that it actually shows that your theory is correct. But we'll get into that more. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that now. Okay. This 4th piece of evidence could be similar to the evidence that you've already used. It might be something completely different. That's up to you. I don't really care where that counterclaim evidence comes from. All right. In the couple questions in the chat with Flipgrid, all we have to do is explain our theory. You have to explain your theory, but I'm going to, as I'm listening to your theory, I'm using this checklist to make sure you have all parts of it. So how many pieces of evidence do you need? You need 3 that completely support, that support your claim. 1 can be from the website you guys just evaluated. 2 of them are found on your own. And then your counterclaim is kind of outlier. You can get that from wherever, but you're looking at okay, this is typically used to support this theory, or people think it might support this, but bring it back and how it actually supports yours. But I'll explain that more in the video. So technically there's 4 pieces of evidence. You get to make up, you don't have to pick one of those theories that were listed on the worksheet, because you might find hey, maybe I think that some of them were killed by natives, but then the others assimilated with the tribe. And then you just go through your paper or your speech proving that. Go ahead, Carter.
Oh, I didn't know I unmuted, but I guess I can just say my question then.
Yeah, go ahead.
So do we do the slides, docs, and Flipgrid?
No, you're picking one. It's a choice.
Okay.
Yeah, you can choose to do it however you want. I put all of those resources there, but you'll only turn in one. But I put all the resources there because then if you have questions, I just have access to your paper right away.
And
Okay?
when is
You're going to get 2 weeks before this is officially due. We won't work on it every day of those 2 weeks, but you will have sufficient time to get this together.
Okay.
All right. I just saw Jacob said, when is it due? So you will get 2 full weeks. We won't work on it every day, but you have that time. It's something you can do if you finish early and whatnot. All right. And then finally, you've got your conclusion. So we're just where you're putting it all together. You guys have done conclusions before. I'm not going to get too far into it. Okay. So this is what I will use to grade it. Now I'm going to show you my example. I did a very shortened example of a theory, and it's a theory that you can't use. You can't use any of the crazy ones like they turned into trees or aliens abducted them or there was a zombie apocalypse. There's all kinds of crazy ones that people come up with. So I did my argument that the Roanoke colonists were abducted by aliens. And this is how my argument would be presented. First is my claim. Colonists were abducted by aliens. They were never returned to Earth, which is why we were never able to find them or any traces of their descendants. The first piece of evidence that I'm going to use is the word Croatoan that was written into the palisade at the site of the Roanoke colony. Now, you guys might be thinking, okay, that seems like a big jump, right? The word Croatoan, meaning that aliens abducted, that's not real life. That is why the explanation part is so key, because this is how I flip this. You might say Croatoan means that that they went and joined the native tribe. Mine is that the colonists were unaware that they were being watched by aliens. The aliens knew that the Croatoan tribe was nearby. When they saw John White leave and he wasn't coming back, they saw their chance. They abducted the colonists. They didn't want Europeans to know that aliens existed. So they just put a couple vague clues around to throw the Europeans off their scent. Now that seems kind of outrageous, right? Thanks, Emil. Really thought about it. Yeah, but you see how, I mean, I took a piece of evidence, and as long as you're explaining, because we don't really know. I mean, you could say that aliens didn't abduct them, but at the end of the day, we don't really know that. But this is where you're going to get used to really explaining how does that evidence support my claim. You guys like to do, and I say you guys very generally, but you guys like to list facts. Like when you're answering a question, you like to list facts. And then you expect the teacher to make the connection for you. Well, there's no connection here. I could think Croatoan means anything I want. You need to tell me how I need to be thinking so that I believe you, if that makes sense. Okay? And then I did the same. I just kept going. I also said that the Dare stones are evidence. They used Eleanor Dare because the aliens knew that she was John White's daughter because they'd been watching her or watching them. And they, wanted to make it believable. So it's all this evidence was they didn't want to put too much, but they wanted to put just enough to throw everybody off. Okay. But my point here by showing you this example is, first, this is how you can use this checklist. And secondly, this is so important because evidence, some people use the same evidence to support different theories. So you need to tell me, how does the reader or the listener need to be thinking about that evidence? Don't let there be any gray area. Okay? All right, I'm going to take some time to look at the questions in the chat. Once you have finished, or once you're, feel pretty good that you've gotten your sources together that you're going to use, your theory's pretty solid, then that's when if you choose to do the slides, you'll just open up this slides option 1. You'll do it right on there. It's just a blank slides document. Same with the doc, if you want to do the essay, and then the link to the Flipgrid is there if you want to start kind of messing around with that. Okay? So that's all I'm going to have for you today. You got about 4 minutes before class ends. If you want to, start getting to work on that, you can. I'll be here to answer some questions. I recorded that explanation, so I'll also upload that so you can look back at it if you are confused about something. But other than that, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. No exit ticket or anything today. But I'm here for questions. And then I can see some. Let me stop recording real quick, and then